Nicolas Cage is probably one of our generation's definitive actors.
Hello and welcome to Cage Fighting. It's your main man Andy Gillard here. Hope everyone's well in the world right now.
Hi everybody, Matt Guy here. Hope everybody is having a fabulous time at the moment.
Fabulous warm summer nights. Or mornings. Hello.
It might not be by the time this podcast goes out, to be honest. Who knows what the weather's going to be like in the future.
Well, it's witchcraft, so who knows?
Yes, very true. So yeah, we are here to discuss Season of the Witch, which is not really what this film should be titled, but we'll get to that point. Had either of you two heard of this film? Is this something new to you? Have you seen it before? Or
I'd heard of it, and I'm familiar with the artwork. I don't know how, but I know it's in this time period of Cage's career, and that's all I knew going into it.
Stu, did you know about this one?
I'd seen the poster with Cage with that hair and holding a sword, and I couldn't wait to get to this film.
Well, I mean, like, first of all, I was wondering if it was going to be somehow related to the Halloween 3 film of the same name, Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, but there's absolutely no links at all. I don't know why they chose the name Season of the Witch, especially because as we get into the film, it's not really about witches. So it's a bit of a
seasons.
Weird. Or seasons, yeah. So obviously looking at the cast, we've got some Perlman action, which I do like a bit of Ron Perlman, I've got to be honest. But kind of like Nick Cage, he can be as much miss as he is hit. Claire Foy, who is a proper actor, like she's BAFTA nominated, Emmy Award winning, but this was her first film role. Stephen Graham, big fan of Stephen Graham in general. Like, I feel he's the modern day Pete Postlethwaite. I think he's a really, really good character actor. Mm-hmm. Christopher Lee, legend, and we've got Robert Sheehan. And as a fan of the Umbrella Academy, like, I was quite looking forward to seeing his early days. Stu, what do you think of that cast?
Other than the last one, it's way too good for this film. Just because I don't know who I've never seen the Umbrella Academy, amazingly enough. But yeah, the others.
Oh, you'd like that?
I know, but it's as we've discussed many times, the ever-growing Netflix list is there for a reason. And it's an original 8, so it's not going to get took down anytime soon.
Yeah,
so
true.
I will get around to it eventually. But yeah, incredible cast. I don't know how this has happened, but it kind of it makes you think that there's a bit of money spent. I don't know, we'll come to that later, but it makes you think there must have been a bit of a decent budget on this for the talent that they managed to attract.
Yeah. Matt, are you a fan of Hellboy?
Yeah, so I'm a fan of like the world of Hellboy and kind of the themes and what it's about, but I'm not Ron Perlman's biggest fan, if I'm honest. But I say this because you'd think with my hobbies and musical choices and things that I'd love Sons of Anarchy, but it's dreadful, and he plays a big part of why it is dreadful for me.
That is a hot take and a half.
So, yeah, well, yeah, there we go. That's what we're all about. But yeah, Ron, I can take it or leave it with Ron Perlman, to be honest.
That's fair. Like I said, I think when he's good, I think he's really good. But when he's bad, like, he may as well not be there. Like, he properly phones it in at times. The director on this film, it is the second film that we've done by Dominic Sena. I think it is Sena rather than the John Cena way of spelling him. He is the guy who did another Cage shambles, Gone in 60 Seconds. Like, that did not give me any hope going into this film, knowing he was the man behind it. Obviously, previously mentioned, he was mostly known for doing music videos until California in 93. California spelled the K for some reason, which is a Duchovny film. Then he did Gone in 60 Seconds, Swordfish, 13 Grains, Whiteout, and then Season of the Witch. And then 10 years later, we've seen nothing else from him. Like, that tells a story in itself, I think.
I like all of them films, though.
The terrible, terrible films.
White, I'm sure I talked about Whitehead when we talked about Gone in 60 Seconds, but it's a film that no one's ever heard of or seen.
For good reason.
No. You watch that at Christmas when it's snowing outside, terrify you.
Right, so IMDb describes this film as 14th century knights transport a suspected witch to a monastery where monks deduce her powers could be the source of the Black Plague.
We've come a long way, my friend. Across oceans, deserts. Seen things few men have seen. If you're still, we'll believe. The end is in sight. There is a whisper throughout the land that the hour of our judgment is upon us. What madness is this? This is a curse from hell, brought upon us by the Black Witch. You have been found guilty of consorting with the devil. Wait! Do it. I am Damon of Blybrook. Your name has become a legend. You must deliver the witch to Severac, where you will destroy the witch's powers. That the witch? That is not what I say. I will take the girl, but if she is not what you say, she will not be yours to burn.
You're not like the others. Do you believe I'm a witch, Bayman?
Don't be deceived. She sees the weakness that lies in our hearts. And what she sees there, she will use against us.
You're not afraid of me. Are you?
The film opens with a man telling a group of women that they have been found guilty of witchcraft. If they want to save their souls, they should repent and admit to being a witch. Whilst one of them does admit to signing a deal with the devil, another tells the man, "Your soul will burn." All three are hanged and then drown in the water below. The man says he needs to read some passage to ensure that they do not rise again. The hound tells them that they are already dead. Nighttime falls, the man pulls the two women back out of the water, reads some spell. The one awakens and then immediately dies, the other one doesn't. And then as he tries to pull up the third one, he gets pulled into the water and attacked by a terrible CGI witch. Really awful. We cut to daytime. It's the Crusades. Hellboy and Ghost Rider take a bet on whoever will kill the most people will be buying the drinks tonight. I thought that the visuals in this, like during the Crusades, I thought it was a really striking visuals. I thought it looked really good. Maybe not wholly appropriate because the Christians were dressed all in white. And they were all white people, and all of the locals tended to be brown-skinned, dressed in red. Like it felt a little reductive, painting the Crusaders as the good guys and the infidels, quote unquote, as evil. What did you think of the Crusades? Not in general in this film.
Until we die. But I think just that the race thing, it is what it was. So there ain't much they could do about that, really, for realism purposes. But it was better than it could have been. It could have been a lot worse. Let's put it that way.
Could it? I mean, we were following our heroes during the Crusades as they were just slaughtering thousands, and these are the people we're supposed to be rooting for. Like, that's not a great start, to be perfectly honest.
It's all in the name of Jesus. So we know what Cage is like with these religious films.
Yeah. Matt, what did you think?
I liked kind of how the only seasons in this film were the different seasons in which they were fighting in. Is the kind of, it was an interesting way of showing how battle hardened these veterans are, I guess, in by having them fighting in all. It's almost like in Mario, you'll have a water level, a sand level, like a jungle level. It was kind of a bit like that, really, like just kind of shoehorn in how. I thought at this point, no, they've obviously thrown a bit of money at this, so at least they're trying. We've got to give them props for trying, I guess.
If nothing else. During one battle, the Crusaders sack a castle, slaughtering unarmed men, women, and children. Cage and Perlman only realise once it's too late. They turn on their priest, telling him that he doesn't hear the voice of God, and they leave the Crusading army because they're good guys now? ? They return home. They note that the sheep have no shepherds and find a family rotting of the Black Death. They've been dead quite a long time by the looks of them because their flesh is rotting and decaying. The lads burn down the house and then move on to the next town. When they arrive within the town walls, they see people driven to the brink of insanity due to the plague. Ghost Rider and Hellboy are identified as being deserters after the priest identifies the sigil on Cage's sword. Cage was covering his face, but Perlman was just like, fuck it, I'm just going to walk around like nothing. But it takes them to notify this tiny little symbol on someone's sword. They get taken to speak to some old gimp sat in a bed. It took me ages to realise that was Christopher Lee. They explain to Cage and Perlman that the plague has been brought onto the people by a witch. They then give the boys the exposition needed to rid the world of this plague. Cage and Perlman agree to escort a witch to her trial and they agree to take her to this trial to cancel the plague so long as that she gets a fair trial and their desertion their desertion charges are dropped. So that's 25 minutes in. I appreciate them showing us the opening. Rather than just telling us that they're deserters, they showed us why they've become deserters. My initial fears that they painted the Crusaders as good guys were quickly put to rest, I felt, by that bit where they said, okay, no, we're not. They're actually the bad guys. It turned out that the Crusaders were like basically a bunch of sanctimonious arseholes, which is kind of what they were in real life anyway. We got to see some witchy nonsense and the exposition dump. I quite liked that opening scene with the hound and the priest getting done in by the witch. Again, I thought it was quite a nice thing. It's all really basic, but it's not awful for the opening 25. What did you pair think?
Yeah, I'd agree. It's not pulling up trees, but at the same time, I'm used to worse. Put it that way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we're getting what we expect, I guess, at this point. I think you just know what's coming with it. It's, this isn't the end of Sixth Sense, is it? Really, we know exactly where this is going and what's going to happen with it, and I think it's very aware of that that it's painted by numbers.
Very pleasantly surprised, really. I didn't expect it to be as kind of dark as it started off with on the bridge. And then, I'm amazed that for such a small bridge, it was really deep water to get them all fully submerged. Which is going to be noted. You get no shopping trolleys, I suppose, back then. But I like the bit where where at first they said, no, we don't serve the church, or whatever it was. And so they went into the world's emptiest dungeon for one night, and that changed their mind. And you think, well, okay, you've changed your mind because you've been treated okay, but there's a girl over there. And it's all a bit, okay, these are knights, and I know he's had a bit of a morality turn because they've just slaughtered loads of innocent people. But it was all a bit, okay, is this the reason now you're joining back with your cause just so you can escape, which would be funny and fine, but it's not. It's to kind of save a girl, which is all a bit okay.
Yeah, I'll get you. So after trying to plot out the map to get the witch to where they're going, Perlman and Cage decide that they need a guide. And it's only bloody Stephen Graham. Things are looking up for all of about 5 seconds until you realise he's doing an American accent. Or is he? Like, I can't quite figure out. I think we need to talk about the accents in this movie, if I'm perfectly honest. So we know, obviously, the Crusaders, they're all British people. It is, I think it's set in England because everybody else seems to be English. But Cage is doing something. Like, I can't even tell you what accent he's doing because he kind of puts on some kind of faux Shakespearean thou art. Like, no one speaks like that or ever has. Perlman isn't even fucking trying. Perlman is putting zero effort into his accent. He's just Ron Perlman. And Stephen Graham, who is English, he's doing the same accent he did as Anthony Provenzano from Scorsese's The Irishman. Like, what the fuck is going on here? I'm baffled by this.
There is a weird train of thought that the American accent is closer to what English used to be, in a way, and that we here evolved into this excellence, and they kind of kept what was exported over there. I've read this a few times, and it sounds insane, really, how why it had worked that way around. But which is all fine if they had gone the full way and just everyone is American, which would have been fine. And okay, you've making a point. You're going down this. It's like having dinosaurs with feathers. Is it right? Is it not? But it's not what you expect. And you expect a film like this set in the past, everyone to be English or at least try. And just having 3 of them sounding different, and it was just like, okay, the 2 knights sound like they sound American-ish because they're of a kind of higher status or whatever. Because it wasn't, because there was other knights there who were English. It just made no sense. It was just shit.
Matt, make it make sense, please.
Well, Stephen Graham is because he's Scouse, not English. So it's absolutely fine, isn't it? It's a strange one. I mean, I don't know if we know that Nick Cage has, apart from when he's really not bothered, he does have a determination to his craft to try and make it authentic, if at all possible. And I think that might be his undoing in this, in that he's tried to put on this accent to make it more authentic and make it more of a, not a period piece, but just try and keep some form of acting chops in there. But it's just not the time or the place. Like, I don't know why this thought came into my head, but I'd have loved to have been in the room when Nick Cage found out his co-lead was going to be Ron Perlman. And I wonder if he went, oh, fucking Ron Perlman. Or if he went, oh, Ron Perlman. I'd love to have known like what his reaction would have been.
Definitely. So the lads have now built their team. We've got a priest, a man to steer the horses, the witch who is held captive by this priest, the guide in Stephen Graham, and then obviously we've got Ghost Rider and Hellboy themselves. And they've got some fucking gimmer who's just followed them because that's what these films need, is just a stowaway to be there. I suppose it's a little bit like in Army of the Dead when Batista's daughter's just like, well, I'm here now and y'all can fuck off. So I suppose that's the trope they were going for. But like, it was just a little bit pointless. I felt that one. This group is wiggy as fuck as well. Like, obviously Cage's hair in this is incredible. It changes colour. Like, he's quite blonde and then really dark brown. Ron Perlman just, again, doesn't seem to have bothered, and I am sure he's wearing gel in this movie. Like, the whole hair, makeup, costume, it all looks appalling in this movie, I thought.
I think he went to one of them shops that still sell that stuff that we had in the 90s, the wet look things with the bubbles in.
It was, wasn't it? It was just like the tub of Brill cream that David Beckham was advertising back in the 90s. The witch manages to escape. She seems to act as though the preacher's diddled her, basically. She won't let him anywhere near her. She's very scared of his touch. Whilst attempting to find the witch, the lads happen upon a mass grave, and the coach driver walks into the young boy's sword. He's delirious, thinking that he has seen his daughter. He doesn't even recognise this young lad and doesn't see the sword there, and ends up impaling himself. They manage to find the witch. She's crying, saying she couldn't let him touch her again. So again, we're getting this thing about the priest being a bad, bad man. On their journey, the team have to cross a jungle canyon rope vine bridge thing. They show the vines snapping as they're like stepping across it, trying to build up the tension. And as they get there, just before they manage to get to the very end, it completely gives way. But somehow, a bit like in when we did our Fast 9 review, Stu, they somehow managed to like ride that little bit of the bridge to get there, even though there was nothing supporting it. Before that happened, the young boy falls off the bridge, but the witch grabs him and lifts him quite easily with just one hand. The gang arrive in Wormwood Forest. This sends them all a little bit crazy. But to be honest, not much really happens here. We're told at the beginning that Wormwood Forest is the place where people lose their minds. And we get there and they just see a wolf, and that was pretty much it.
I was expecting it to be a little more supernatural.
I thought this was going to be the meat of the film, if I'm honest, but there wasn't much.
It's scarier down rough wood than this. And it was just some trees with a bit of mist. That's all it was.
Yeah.
And then
I wonder if
it's like budget reasons or something. They just thought, oh, well, there's some trees over there. Let's put the lights down, make it a bit scarier. It's a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I think so. The team arrive at their destination. All of the monks are dead of the plague. The priest begins to lose his faith a little here, seeing all of the death around him. He assumes that God has abandoned them. Cage puts on a super English accent for the very first time, and probably the only time in this movie. The team find the Book of MacGuffin, which is basically the spell book to defeat evil, and now decide that now is the time to give the witch her trial. Except she seems to know things that she shouldn't. The priest realises that she is no witch but a demon. I assume that's what it was, because it's never really explained until after this point. I think we're just supposed to guess that she's a demon. Like,
it's the same one.
Clear.
It's the same as it's the same picture basically as the guy at the start when he looks through the book. That's the only way that we know that the two are linked, and it was really poor. I thought that, because I was like, oh, it just makes you realise that we're just not setting your expectations. Is not really what I mean, but it's like, oh, okay, it's the thing from the start, but it's just lazy. It's lazy. There's no explanation of what's going on. I want backstory. When we're talking about the supernatural, I want to know. I'm genuinely interested in the mythology and stuff with these kind of things.
Yeah,
and I just would like a little bit more just to reel me in.
It didn't want to do that at all, did it?
No,
Kept you at arm's length, if anything. At this point, Cage knights the young boy. The demon attempts to destroy the book so that nothing can stop her powers. She heads to a room where the monks are making copies of the book. The demon is now outside of the witch's body, and it's become a really, really shitty looking CG mess with wings. It looked terrible. I mean, I know it's 10 years ago, but we've seen better CGI in the 90s than this. This was awful.
What's the name of the things in Doctor Who? The stone angels, whatever they are.
The Weeping Angels.
Is that when you close your eyes, they come closer to you?
Yeah.
Now, that's always been the benchmark for me of really bad special effects and CGI, and they're better than this than this monstrosity that we get in Season of the Witch.
Well, it's got more in common with the adipose monsters than
it has.
than the Weeping Angels. It's just fucking awful. It's you'd get better CGI in games of 10 years ago than this.
You really do.
I know it's not really a. No, I'm not even going to defend it. There's no excuse at all. I mean, up until here, it was probably round about a 4 or a 5. And then that thing appeared. I thought, well, you've just not bothered, have you? There's literally no point because it's now just took it completely out of it, and I'm tempted to say it's worse than the Scorpion King.
Yeah. I mean, the Scorpion King's bad, but they're trying to render an actual human being, which for 2002, was it? 2001, maybe? Like, that's a tricky thing to do then. And we've gone on 10 years, and this looks dreadful. This is really piss poor. The dead monks then get possessed, and our heroes have to decapitate them. One monk manages to stab Cage's eye, another stabs Hellboy, who is then burnt. The demon breaks the priest's neck, so we're down to the final few. Cage manages to pin down the demon whilst the young boy reads the exorcism. Explosions and nonsense goes off all around him. And that's the end of the fight sequence. Cage, the young boy, and the de-witched witch manage to bury their friends. Cage tells the young boy to look after the witch. They ride off together talking about what happens. And for the first time in this fucking movie, we get voiceover narration from the witch. Like, we didn't get that through any of the rest of this film. Why the hell did they bring this in right at the very end? Strange fucking film. But that's the end of the movie anyway. So, you've both mentioned the budget on this film. What do you think, as a benchmark of Cage films we've seen, where do you think this is going to fall? Are we going to go with high, mid, low?
It's got to be higher, isn't it? Just because of the cast and, the scale of some of the fight scenes, especially in that montage. And yeah, I'd say it's got to be high-ish.
I've gone the other way now, thinking about it, because you're talking 10 years ago. Stephen Graham, relative unknown, for a big an American finance film. Christopher Lee's a minute, 2 minutes screen time lying in a bed with a bit of fungus on his face, probably a day's work. So it's not really all it's capital to be. And then you look at the state of things, and I mean why the wolves had to turn into other wolves. The CGI on that was pretty bad, but then you got Scorpion King-esque nonsense of the demon at the end. The effects were awful. The costumes were shit, and the big star, one wasn't a star, and the other one probably had a day's work. So it wouldn't surprise me if it's actually around about like 15, 20 million.
So it was $40 million, which, to put into context, is the same budget as The Wicker Man. The Nick Cage Wicker Man, that is, not the original. Like, I don't understand where that money's been spent, if I'm honest. That's a healthy paycheck for this movie, and I don't think it translated all that well to the screen, if I'm perfectly honest. So the box office returns, and I cannot believe I'm about to give you this number. It made $91.6 million worldwide.
What a success.
Yeah, I mean, it more than doubled its budget. That is a roaring success by any measure. That is incredible. Like, I fully expected this was going to come in around 20 to 30 million. Like, we're in 2011. Lord of the Rings was a long time ago at this point. Who is watching this shit? Baffled by this one.
Well, you say who's watching it, but you still had Game of Thrones riding high, and the whole fantasy thing was still there.
Game of Thrones just started.
Yeah.
I think Game of Thrones started after this film came out.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Game of Thrones was a TV version of this. You had things like Troy and stuff like that after Lord of the Rings, and other kind of, and Beowulf and all kind of fantasy bollocks, just trying to jump on the back of it. So this was towards the end of it being in films. I agree with that. But then you had Lord of the Rings in TV. So fantasy never really died. It just shifted. So, I mean, and the tricked me because I was just by the poster. It looked intriguing. And it was nothing of the sort.
I mean, where was this in Ron Perlman's? I mean, this is like pretty much smack bang in the middle of Sons of Anarchy. So he'd be riding a crest of a wave of that. So I wonder, in comparison to like Hellboy and other things, I wonder where it is. I wonder if he's so Hellboy was 2004, Hellboy 2 2008,
Yep, so this is 2011, so it would have been,
a couple of years after.
yeah, a few years after. I mean, he's got a lot of work, but not much I've seen, especially in this period of time. Yeah, I mean, Sons of Anarchy started 2010, I think, looking at this. Maybe even earlier than
8,
that.
I think.
Was it 8? So, I mean, he wasn't in this film a massive amount, so it might just be that he was filming Sons of Anarchy and needed something to keep him ticking over during the off-season, maybe. There's not a fat loss of interest. Yeah, 2008 to 2013. So it was bang in the middle of his run on that. So yeah, that could be an explanation for as to
I like
why.
how Ron Perlman on IMDb is described as a classically trained actor who has appeared in countless stage plays, apparently.
Oh my god, I'd love to see you on the stage just to see what the fuck would happen. Incredible. So before I give you the scores, guess what you think they'll be. Matt?
I mean, the critics have got to slam it, absolutely slam it. So that's got to be about 20%. I'd say the critic, the fan, because of its success, it's probably higher to like 65, 70. I reckon there's going to be a huge swing between critic and fan on this one.
Stu, what do you think?
Critics about 15. I can't see anyone saying anything nice about it from a properly trained eye. Because what is that? There's nothing. I mean, audience, just because it made so much money doesn't mean people liked it, though. It could go the complete opposite way. There's so many people watch this bollocks on opening weekend, absolutely hated it, and that's why it stayed where it did. So I want to go about 440, something like that for audience.
So on IMDb, it got a 5.4. The Metacritic was a 28. So Rotten Tomatoes audience score was 30%. So 3 out of 10 people enjoyed it. The critical score was 11%. The only positive review I could find from the critics was from Robbie Collin, who, to be honest, he's just fucking awful critic. So I hold like nothing but contempt for his reviews in general. So take that what you will. Most of them obviously were hugely negative. James Berardinelli from Real Views just went in on Cage. Cage is effective as a falling down drunk leaving Las Vegas, or a treasure hunter navigating goofy road trips, but not as a disillusioned champion of the church going one-on-one with a demon. Steven Seagal would have been more believable. He wasn't the only one. Joe Newmeyer from the New York Daily News, rather than elevating this wannabe Hammer horror flick, Cage somehow lowers its quality. Peter Travers from Rolling Stone just flat out hated this movie. Season of the Witch is as bloodless as a starving vampire. Instead of a review, it deserves a stake in the heart. And Stephen Whitty from the Newark Ledger, really, at its worst, the whole thing is a little bit like Monty Python and the Holy Grail, minus the jokes. The fan response, there were some people who liked it. From Amazon.com, this film had a 4.5 out of 5, with a staggering 90% of reviews being 4 or 5 stars. 90 fucking percent. So Neil from the UK, he said, I've come to learn not to trust the critics' views. They thought little of this film, although it did okay at the box office. I thought this film was great. Even when not a lot was happening, you could enjoy the mood and atmosphere growing, and the sets and costumes look very authentic. I was also impressed with the gritty realism. The gritty realism about a film about witches and demons in the 14th century. What the fuck is this guy talking about? Happy Jude said, a very dark and brooding film. Nicolas Cage is very good in this. Has a nice twist at the end too. Where was the brooding? Where was the twist? Like, is the twist that the witch was a demon? Because that's not really a twist, is it? Not really, anyway. And Study Queen, who titled her review Cage at one of his best performances.
Lord.
Yeah. This is a typical good against evil, but with a twist. Cage is brilliant as the main character, and the film has a really good story to it. Only thing I found was that sometimes the camera swings and bounces, which made me feel a little seasick. But this is a good film, and if you like the old Lord of the Rings, Throne of Swords type, with the added interest of good versus evil, then this is your film. Incredible. So, Matthew, give us your good, bad, and crazy, please.
So the good for me, it's a tough one, really. I put the performance of the witch. I forget her name. Apologies.
Claire Foy.
Claire Foy. Was about the best of a bad bunch when she teases that she's good, teases that she's evil, teases a little twist here and there that she's, all isn't quite what it seems. It's probably the only thing that kept any kind of interest in wanting to carry on. I mean, if I hadn't doing it for this labour of love, I definitely would have stopped watching this if I was watching it on telly or something like that. But she's the only thing that kept it kind of going in a way. Was kind of her performance and what she was bringing to the plot, I guess.
What plot?
Well, yeah, or lack thereof. The bad, and I mentioned, I text you, Andy. This was it 90 minutes or was it 9 hours? I couldn't tell the difference between. This was very much a pause. How much longer have I got left? Okay, let's carry on. It slogged. It really slogged. And it's not the longest runtime of anything that we've watched by quite a bit, but it felt it. It felt every bit of it. The crazy is the use of Americanisms by what are meant to be English. We assume to be English characters. So the first one I noticed was Ron Perlman said, "Let's get the hell out of here." And it just felt so out of place.
Yeah. I have a note in my bits. He says shit as well, which just seems so weird.
And not in a partridge shit kind of way. Just like a...
Yeah.
It just... The sheer lack of effort on Perlman's part, and, I almost respect Cage for giving it a bit of a go. Whereas I just thought the Americanisms of it was really strange. Either go all the way and not try and do any kind of realism about it and just make it a story with American accented actors and then have that, or actually be responsible and try and build a world that is almost semi-believable that you're even in the country that you're meant to be in.
Totally fair, mate. Stu, what's yours?
I mean, the good was the fact that it was 97 minutes long. that was it. And I'll fit it in between work and the school run in the morning. Let's try it. And I'd got it all proper, and it wouldn't even work on projectors. It wouldn't work through my PS4. Didn't recognise it as a file. So I thought, well,
I tried to warn you.
Yeah, this is a great sign. So even with pissing about with that, and then I'll put it on through the through other consoles, and I still had time to do other things. That was probably the best thing about it. I mean, the bad, it's fucking everything else. It's just insulting and it's just a waste of time. It's like Matt said, the accents that we've already mentioned didn't make any sense. The costumes were like out of a Mr. Ben cartoon. The whole wood thing. I mean, you think of things like Lord of the Rings, where everything's absolutely spot on. And again, they didn't spend a massive amount of money, comparatively, really, at the time. I know Weta was a kind of indie effects studio at the time, but even so, you think of them three films and you're going to think of the set pieces. In this, the set pieces is what? There's the bridge, the wolves, the monks, and then the CGI demon. That's 4 things. 4 things in an hour and a half film. And every single one of them's wank. Every single one. And you look at these... the whole Jeopardy of the Bridge thing was just, like you said, a bit like Fast 9, with just nonsense. And I know we kind of been overly critical because this is... It's almost like a B movie, but it's not it's not marketed as a B movie. It's marketed as a proper film.
It's got a proper budget and it made a proper box office.
Yeah.
So it's not a B movie. You are right.
It's just really bad. And, I mean, I know I've said it quite a few. It's obviously not going to beat next. Let's not be silly here. But I don't even think it's going to be trouble in the bottom 5 either, because it's just not. It's not bad enough to go there. It's just annoying.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
It's
utterly forgettable, isn't it? This.
Yeah, it's a bit like that. What was the like Pay the Ghost? It's just, well, okay.
Yeah. God, that's
so it's you can't really say. And we can absolutely destroy it because wasted talents of making Stephen Graham do that. Obviously, he's got paid handsomely for it, but it's just a waste of just. There's something there. There's an idea there somewhere, but every step of the way is just badly executed.
Lost. Yeah. The idea is lost in this totally.
I mean, you got to mix that in with the crazy, because there's so many like blatant copies of Lord of the Rings. It's like tracking shots and things like that with a bit of mountain behind them and things like that. Like they're on a proper journey as a fellowship, and you think, oh, come on, let's play the game here. You can. We know what you're doing. You don't. Not every fantasy film has to have tracking shots and things like this with operatic music on, and we know what you're trying to copy in half the time of one of them films. It's just bollocks. That's the whole thing.
Yeah. My good... You know what? After having said everything negative about Ron Perlman, I really want to see Ron Perlman and Nick Cage in a film together again. Like, have either of you two seen The Good Guys? With Russell Crowe and Gosling. I want to see like a black comedy with these two as like buddy cops who kind of hate each other. I think they'd work really well together.
Give me Bad Lieutenant with Ron Perlman in as well. Yeah. And I'm all for that.
Like a motivated Ron Perlman and Nick Cage doing something that, like a good script, I think would be really interesting and really good fun. Obviously, this wasn't it, but like it's made me want to see it, so I think that's good. The other good thing, this is the last film we need to watch from 2011 of Nick Cage, and it's also the last film that Dominic Sena has done, so we don't have to ever revisit any of his shite either. The bad, like you said, Stu, it's everything else. Like, they needed to lean into the bollocks, I think. Like, there was enough stupid shit that they just sort of glossed over and moved on. If they'd have really, like, hammed it up and really made it dumb, it could have at least been a so bad it's good kind of movie, but it wasn't. It was just, as you said, utterly forgettable. Like, the fact that it was 90 minutes... and we've got the Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones epics. I wonder if the studios thought that's what they were going to get. I don't quite know what they were thinking of with this one. Like there was a lot of filler in this movie, and I feel there were so many people who were just utterly wasted. So Stephen Graham, barely any screen time. Claire Foy was good when she was on screen, but she wasn't on screen enough. And we had the Hound, we had Rory McCann right at the beginning of this film, just as Game of Thrones is about to go, and he literally has one line in it, and they don't even spell his name right. They spell it they spell McCann M-A-C, not M-C for Mac. Like, show the man a little bit of fucking respect. Awful. So the crazy for myself. This film was stuck in development hell for a long time. This script was originally passed by MGM in 2000. It took 11 years to get this film to screen, and this is what they gave us after 11 years. It was originally due to be released in March 2010, but the studio hated it so much they made them do some reshoots, pushed it back 12 months. These reshoots, they brought in Brett Ratner, who made one of the worst X-Men films. He hired his long-time collaborating editor just for the reshoots and ended up getting him to do the whole film. So this is the improved version of the film.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how bad this film. Like, could you imagine how shit the original must have been if this is what they gave us?
Maybe this is why his hair changes colour.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can think of is that they couldn't find the same wig, so we've got two different hair colours. Yeah. So, did you enjoy this film, Stu?
Kind of. But not in it. I'm never going to watch it again. Obviously, I wasn't like Matt checking that it was like 90 hours long or whatever, because it was a kind of throwaway way to spend a Monday afternoon. It was just okay. And I could have been watching 2 episodes of The Flash, which would have been better, but it was just it was what it was. I didn't hate it. I didn't like it either. It was just there. So
That's
I can't.
fair.
It's kind of like a cop out saying, but there's no definitive answer because I don't know what it is.
That's completely understandable, I think. Matt, tell me what you think.
I'm afraid not. And it doesn't have the it's so shit it's good quality to it. It's not good anyway, so it doesn't have that quality to it. It's utterly forgettable. It's somehow bloated as a film, even though it doesn't have anything going on. It's bloated yet anorexic at the same time. Like, I don't know how to describe it. It's just dreadful, bloody dreadful. And I'm like, it's a shame because the world it's set in and the supernatural element of it and that kind of stuff is right up my street as well. So maybe that feels like the biggest betrayal is that it could have been good,
Yeah.
but it wasn't.
I mean, you've said pretty much everything that I've gotten written down here. Like, for a sub 100-minute film, it shouldn't feel longer than Endgame. And it does. It felt like every minute and then some. It didn't have any real redeeming features, this movie, for me. We've seen this story before. It's nothing new. The CGI was terrible. The acting was subpar. The script was shoddy. The direction was non-existent. And as you said, it's not bad enough to be so bad it's good, which is the worst thing about it. Because at least if it was, you could have had a laugh about it. Instead, it was just forgettable. And based on this film and this film alone, was Cage good or was Cage bad? Matt?
Afraid not, Nicholas. I appreciate your effort, and I think you put more time and effort in than others in this production, but you can put lipstick on a pig. Maybe a pretty pig, but it's still a pig.
Yeah, I've got that. He sort of looked bored. I feel like he gave up halfway through because I do feel like he tried. He took horse riding lessons and sword fighting lessons in preparation for this film, which it's kind of cool that he's done that, but I don't see anything in this film that needed those lessons to be taken. All he's done is padded out his resume for the next film, really, I think. So it's a bad from me as well. Stu?
Yeah, you look at and he's the best part of this film, and that's not saying anything, is it? And yeah, it's obviously now because it could have been Steven Seagal easily.
Yeah.
It could have been any one of them kind of. It could have been Van Damme. He put Van Damme in this. It would have been even better. But to be fair, like you said, for him to do that and something that we didn't see until Jiu-Jitsu, where he's doing this kind of thing. Fair play to him. At least he tried, and he looked like he could be asked for bits of it. But you got the sort of fight between Ron Perlman and the baby Gimp in the clearing in the forest, which is like, oh, okay, these people have never held a sword in their lives. What's going on here? It's just let's just kind of tap each other with twigs. He might as well have just done that. But yeah, he's not. Nah, it's on the bad side. He wouldn't get work after this if it was his first film.
So I've got another Cage question for you before we move on. Cage had 5 films released in 2011: Season of the Witch, Drive Angry, Seeking Justice, Trespass, Ghost Rider, Spirit of Vengeance. If you've got to recommend one of those 5 films, which film are you telling folks to watch? Stu?
Drive Angry, 100%. Not even close.
That's fair. I enjoyed Drive Angry. Matt, what about you?
Same, Drive Angry, crack open a few beers, do a line beforehand. You'll have a whale of a time.
See, I've gone with Seeking Justice because I think that would probably have the wider appeal. I prefer Drive Angry. I think it's a much more fun movie, but I love schlocky B movies like that. But I think Seeking Justice, I think, would probably appeal to more folks than Drive Angry. That's the only reason I'm leaning that side of things personally. But I mean, none of these ones were particularly great films. Like, none are anywhere near my top 5, ultimately, I think, on this one. But I need you now to finish the sentence. If you enjoyed Season of the Witch, you might also like... Stu?
The Witcher on Netflix.
Oh, the one with Superman.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that. It's good.
Yeah, it's weird though. Look up. It's not. It's one of them things where it's all George Lucas just for the sake of it, where the episodes are not in chronological order.
Oh, that sounds annoying. Right,
Yeah,
okay.
it really is annoying. And unless you've played the games or read the books, you wouldn't have a fucking idea what was going on. So look up the proper way to watch it and then watch it that way.
Right, okay. Fair enough.
But even watching it out of order with no kind of knowledge would be better than this.
Matt, what about you?
First of all, The Witcher has Anya Chalotra, who was from good old Wolverhampton. She was from Lower Pen.
Go on.
Yeah, go on, gal. For me, Stu mentioned it earlier, it would be Beowulf. Beowulf, I pronounced that right? Not spectacular, but for a 3D, I don't know what the exact term is, but like a 3D animated
Rendering?
ensemble. Yeah, rendering, 3D rendering. Yeah, let's go with that. It was something I hadn't really seen before and actually really enjoyed. But again, like I've mentioned before, I'm really into like Norse mythology, Greek mythology, stuff like that. And I think they did a really good job of it. And it's got a pretty stellar cast as well. And it's just, if you like that world and were disappointed with what you got from Season of the Witch, give Beowulf a go. And you may tick a few more of the boxes that you enjoy from those kind of worlds.
I've got a book, well, 2 books and a film. If you like the mythology side of things, I was going to say Stephen Fry did Myths and Heroes books. They're really interesting.
I've listened to nearly all of those audiobook series. They're really, really good. And Stephen Fry is so good at, he's so listenable. So
I've not listened to the audiobooks, but I've read them. And he just writes in a way that you can understand, like, as a pleb, it's very easy to get into. It's really well done. The film that I was going to recommend is Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters. It is dumb as rocks. It proper leans into the bollocks, which this film didn't. And I think it's all the better for embracing the nonsense of it all. It's sort of steampunkish, maybe. It's not often I'd recommend a Jeremy Renner film at all, but I do love Gemma Arterton and Famke Janssen, and also Peter Stormare is in it, and he's always crazy fun. So that's the one for me, Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters. So thankfully, we are finally done with 2011, as we have now watched this monstrosity. If you've seen this film or anything else we've discussed, drop us an email, and that's CageFightingPod@gmail.com, or get in contact on the Twitter @CageFightingPod. Obviously, as you're listening to us now, please make sure you've subscribed on whatever podcatcher you use. Whilst you're subscribing, we would really appreciate a review. It just helps us out massively. And of course, tell your friends what you're listening to. We would hugely appreciate it. So for this week, Matt, would you like to say goodbye?
Take care, everybody. Look after yourselves.
Stu, would you like to say goodbye?
We're going to need more holy water.
And it's goodbye from me. And remember, be excellent to each other.